All right, so Blender, of course, is very precise depending on what you're trying to do. Whether you're working with an object on the whole, or whether you are dealing with things vertex by vertex, or whatever the case might be, it's a very precise program. That said, we know that this cube is 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. Um, and that's great. But sometimes you might get situations where you have objects or vertices and you need to know their size relative to one another, or you have an object that is irregular in shape or size rather than simply a cube or a sphere. So having the ability to measure distances is very useful. So there is an add-on for that. If we go to Edit, Preferences, you may well know that this is where we find our add-ons. Make sure add-ons is selected. And if we come up here to the search bar, there is MeasureIt. If I just type in ME, make sure you check the box. After you've done that, you should see over here on the toolbar, T, right? This tool for being able to measure. And now if we do this, we should be able to grab that tape measure, drag across, and measure things. All right, well, that doesn't seem to be quite right. So let's take a look. I mean, eyeballing it, it seemed like I was measuring correctly, but the one thing you got to be aware of is I'm in perspective view. I wasn't looking at things straight on exactly. So my measurements are going to be off. It's the equivalent of taking a tape measure or ruler and kind of holding it up like this and eyeballing something. So that's generally not going to be good enough for what we're trying to do. However, if I go into, if I hit 1 on my number pad or 3 or whatever and get a straight on view and do the same thing, let's just slide it over a bit so I can get closer. And if I grab the tape measure now and there we go, and I measure across, you'll see that I am pretty close to the mark. And I think that the error was, if we zoom in, that I was a little bit off when I started measuring. So, we chalk that up to human error. But the point is, this can be incredibly useful in being able to measure. And I believe even if we were to switch to orthographic view, it's still going to come in very handy in that way also. Let's do an example here, actually. So let's tab into the object. Let's edge select a couple of edges. Let's subdivide them. There we go. In this case, I think I just want this edge. And I'm going to grab it on X and bring it in here. Okay. Now, let's say you're just trying to do something geometric and you've got to use your Pythagorean theorem to figure out a fairly precise measurement. Well, this is where this could come in really handy, because now I have the ability to grab this measuring tool and I can measure from one point to another and get a much better read on things. All right, so play around with it, but I do think that this tool is very useful and does come in handy in certain times.